Well, welcome back, keepers. Here we are, yet another episode. Hello, lovely Raoul.
Hello. This is Keeping It Real with Jack and Ralph.
So she's so good with the homework and the housekeeping.
I just feel like we should say the title just in case some
random discovered us.
stumbles across and goes, who are these people that don't even introduce their podcast?
I would be hoping they already know what they're listening to because they've downloaded it or they're listening. But still, it's great brand recall. Keep saying.
Here we go.
Keeping it real.
Keeping It Real with Jack and Ralph. Gabrielle Dolan, Jack Phillips. We're here to please.
And let's hope we are pleasing. I'm going to carry on talking about what inspires me.
I know, because last week we thought we could do it in one episode, but clearly you are inspired by a lot of stuff. So we split it into part one.
So we're going to talk about pop culture, what I'm watching, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to that is inspiring me, because hopefully keepers might take something away from that, as well as what is inspiring me with work. And there's so much inspiring me across all of those things. But I just want to put it back on you for a minute. You and I were having a coffee as we were getting our lippy on, ready to do our recording today. And I was asking you about your awesome week you've just had with a group of awesome, inspiring women. Do you want to quickly talk about this conference?
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, probably for the last 6 months, I've been co-chairing the International Women's Forum Australian Symposium. So we run this conference. International Women's Forum is a global network. It's sort of invite only, so it's very special.
Oh, exclusive.
Very exclusive. And in Australia, we run a national mini conference, I guess, every 2 years. And it was in Melbourne this year and I co-hosted it. And the speakers we got, the calibre of the speakers, just talking about gender equality, talking about the future trends that are happening in the world, but both male and female speakers from all over the globe.
So impressive.
Talking about leadership and burnout, which was some really amazing stuff in there. Neurodiversity in leadership. There's a lot of things that you don't know it yet, but they're going to influence some future podcasts. So because there was some brilliant stuff in there, and people just gave their time generously, being in a room with 100 other amazing women that we're feeling all connected.
Did you keynote or facilitate? Or
no, I co-chaired. I did opening and closing address, and I interviewed Louise Milligan, who is ABC reporter. Talk about a brave, courageous,
smart, sassy.
You know what I was going to say? Really good looking, but a lot of people said we look the same. So. But she,
so
you know what, she
humble,
actually, when I first saw her in person, I mean, clearly I'd seen her.
Actually.
She actually looked like my daughter Alex.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's better looking than me.
Yeah.
And then I also interviewed 3 of the independents. So Kylie Tink, Zoe Daniel, and Monique Ryan. And we were
inspiring.
we were just talking about what type of future do we want in Australia, and some of the things they're passionate about at the moment, and that they're working on it. So they were. I mean, I loved having the opportunity to do them. But
incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, it was about
inspiring.
And I think also too, you talk about getting inspired. Going to conferences and hearing from great speakers that, blow your mind.
What a great way to learn.
Is something you should be doing.
Connect, network. Yeah. I couldn't agree more, and think and reflect on. I couldn't agree more.
Anyway, we don't want to run out of time and turn this into part 3.
I've got so many good things. So many things are inspiring me. Well, you just touched on the ABC, and one of the things that is inspiring me big time as part of my pop culture category is listening to Roy and HG's new Olympic-themed ABC radio show and podcast called People, Medals and Cheese. Touching medals, touching hearts. Do you know, I came across Roy and HG about 30 years ago. I was living and working in WA in radio, and I got nominated for a radio award and had to come to Melbourne. Stayed with my best friend, darling Bernadette, in Carlton, and she had Roy and HG on the radio one Saturday afternoon, and I had never heard of them before, and yet I worked in radio. I'd just come across the ditch, so forgive me. And I remember thinking, these two are incredible. Their wit, their camaraderie, but just how smart and funny they were.
Yeah. And so for people that don't know, they're comedians, but if you just tuned into their radio show and they focus on sport,
correct,
you would actually think you're listening to a very serious sports show, but half the stuff they do is made up.
Oh, it's taking a piss.
And so you're listening and you're going, Is that true? That can't
You
be
start to
true.
question
And
things.
it was lost.
And they
someone-
don't laugh.
No,
Or
and
now
they
and
don't
again they'll get the
laugh.
giggles,
They
but
get a bit of a giggle.
they stifle it.
So it's not like a comedy laughing.
No.
And then
So
so many
clever.
people go, I don't know when they're telling the truth or they're serious.
exactly
okay, you
it.
just have to assume all the time. Sorry, telling the truth or joking.
But it's
You've got
funny.
to assume the whole time they're joking.
And they are. They're taking a piss. So what was absolutely cracking me up is one of their episodes on touching metals, touching hearts. We love French cheese, but we think Aussie cheese is better. HG brought across some Bega cheese and he got a few of the French locals to have a bit of a sample. They were blown away. They also discussed the Australian athletes being prepared for the Olympic Village, but not just any old sort of prep. They're talking about when it comes to sex. No one slips on a condom more easily than an Aussie overseas, says Roy. We've been doing it since the First World War, winning gold and slipping on a franger. It's just what we do best. I was absolutely pissing myself. So
I know.
Roy and HG,
I listen to that.
listen to them. You
Yeah,
can-
every day during the Olympics when it was on, they would do a podcast the next day,
Yeah.
and it went for like an hour or so, and I would deliberately be going out for a walk
Yeah.
like 2 minutes after it dropped to listen to it. It
It's
was
just so good.
Very, very.
So
just-
you don't have to download a podcast platform or anything. You can actually just through your phone go onto the internet and you can actually replay these episodes. But if you haven't heard Roy and HG doing their Olympic coverage live from Paris, listen to it because it will absolutely. And you don't even have to like sport.
No,
which is
the
even,
one thing I did love, they completely
bonus.
took the piss out of the commentators, the TV commentators that had no idea of the sport.
Yeah.
So Mark Taylor, who is an amazing Australian captain cricketer, like
yeah.
back in the day,
yeah.
was commentating the diving.
And you'd have no idea about diving.
Anyway, they
Yeah.
were just taking the piss the whole time.
They
Very
are funny. They're very, very
What
funny.
else?
Well, I can't believe, because I checked in with you, that you have not watched the Gentleman series on Netflix.
No.
Oh, my God. It is the best Netflix series of 2024 and it's been watched 70 million times.
What's the
So
what's
Guy
the-
Ritchie, you've heard of Guy Ritchie?
Oh, yeah.
Formerly married to
Madonna?
Yes, that didn't end well or last long, but that's okay. He is an amazing British producer of film. And there was a movie called The Gentleman. Well, this is the series, The Gentleman. And it has the most amazing cast. And it's a blend of British aristocracy and money with the sort of underworld criminal underground. And the two collide. And the casting is superb. Have you seen it, Keehlan? Oh, you've got to watch the series. And the Susie Glass is all I'll just say to you, my new role model.
Okay.
Susie Glass. Okay. So if you haven't watched the Gentleman series on Netflix, get on it. And they've just confirmed they're going to film a second series with 6 episodes and they'll do that for 2025. I cannot wait.
You know what I got onto extremely late just recently? In fact,
Wouldn't
it
be
was
as good as The Gentleman.
Well, I don't know. I haven't watched The Gentleman, so I can't. Bridgerton.
Oh, God.
So we was talking about the conference.
It's a bit of fun, Bridgerton.
Well, we were talking about the
beautifully
conference before,
shot.
and it was 3 days of intense,
Exhausted.
like listening to amazing, inspiring, challenging speakers.
So you
and
just needed something
I
mindless.
got
and
home on
Bridgerton
the
would do it.
Friday, and I sat on the couch and opened up a bowl of red and ordered pizza. And thought, I just need to mind numb. And
Yeah.
there was all this talk. So I just started with the last series.
It's beautiful to watch. Diversity
The main
is good.
character in this series is the woman from Derry Girls, and I loved
She's
the Derry
awesome.
Girls.
Anyway, I'm reading a really good book at the moment, and it's written by a guy who's been deemed the happiness expert, Arthur C. Brooks. Have you heard of Arthur C.
yes,
Brooks?
yes, I have.
Very famous. He's written this book called From Strength to Strength. You would love this book. It talks about finding success, happiness, and deep purpose in the second half of our life. It's very, very inspiring because it's about thinking what's next for us. If you're over the age of sort of 40, 45, we're entering the second half of our careers, if you will, yeah? And he talks about how our first half of our careers, first half of life is very, very simple. You know, when it comes to the formula for success, you just work really bloody hard, yeah? You focus single-mindedly, you work relentlessly, you sacrifice personally, and it works until it doesn't, because eventually it does stop working as you get older. And that's because we're actually governed by different rules. In middle age, we find success harder to come by. And that is very true, particularly if you're staying in the same sort of roles or in the same industry. What you actually need to think about is what you've done before isn't actually going to get you to where you need to get to.
We've
You
said
actually
that
need
before.
to think about things
what got you
differently.
here won't get you
Correct.
there.
So he draws on science, philosophy, theology, and history and shares strategies for releasing old habits and forming new life practices. And this is what I really loved. He says, Arthur C. Brooks says, in our first half of life, when we're grinding and working really hard, we're actually able to solve new problems very quickly because we're relying on fluid intelligence. Okay? And as we age, we need to actually embrace and leverage crystallized intelligence.
Okay, I need you to explain the two difference between fluid and crystallized.
So fluid, cognitively, we're at our best younger, yeah? So neurons are firing, our bodies are younger, we're quicker. You know, I mean, you know yourself, you're more responsive when you're younger. So we're able to solve problems really quickly. As we get older, there is cognitive decline. No one can stop that. We can stay smart by reading more, by learning lots, by continuing to challenge ourselves and put ourselves out there. But what we actually do with crystallized intelligence is we use accumulated knowledge and experience and more reflection to mentor others, teach, and also contribute in ways that it's not just on raw wisdom but actually based on experience. And a younger person can't do that as well. So it's playing to our strengths in areas that we've got. Now you think about...
Well, I'm thinking of our podcast here.
I'm thinking about my coaching, your workshops.
Yeah.
Somebody 24 can't do those things.
No.
Or if they did do those things, maybe can't's the wrong word, they could do those things, but they would bring different experience and wisdom to it.
Yes. Well, they'd
a lot less.
Clearly
less
a lot
wisdom, less experience.
Less experience if you're 24 as opposed to 54.
So it's a really great read, From Strength to Strength by Arthur C. Brooks, because it shows us how to accept the gifts of our second half of life with grace, joy and purpose. It's quite inspiring. As I was reading a little bit of it, I was getting a bit depressed, thinking, oh dear.
What, you're in the...
Well, I'm in the second sort of stage, and what got me here...
When is the third stage? There's
I
a
love
third
that.
stage. When's the third stage?
I'll ask Arthur C. Brooks, is he going to write a book about, from week to week? I don't know. From strength to strength. I don't know what the third stage is.
I guess those stages change. I always used to, me and my friends would go, like when you turn a certain, like so when you turn like 45 is like mid-40s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you'd go, he's 43. And so we've decided that, 43 is still early 40s.
Absolutely.
53 is still early 50s.
Oh, yeah. If it's not after 5.
Well, I'm going to correct you there. I reckon 54, 55, 56 and 57
young
are mid.
Mid what?
Mid-50s
Oh,
or mid-40s,
I love
whatever.
that.
And then
I love that.
58 and 59 are late.
So what you're saying, Rahl, is that age is
added-
relative,
yeah.
and the older you get, the younger those sort of years coming towards you seem to be.
Because, and that's what it just
good
reminded me
attitude,
when you
I
said,
think.
what's the third stage? Because when you're 50, you're 50, or when you're 40, you're 40. But when you're 51, it's early 50s.
Hey, if there was one piece of advice I'd give keepers is hang around old people, not young people. And I love hanging around young people. I'm surrounded by them, so I always feel the oldest in the room. But we recently had a darling, darling friend of my mother-in-law's come and stay, and she was 90. Cognitively sharp as a tack, mobility-wise a bit rough, but that's okay. We managed. And she is a hoot. And I remember thinking, God, I feel young.
Yeah.
Because I had a 90-year-old around me, not a 25-year-old. So there's something about hanging around with older people and her wisdom and her storytelling and her experiences. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So
I think
good.
there's a whole episode in that. It's like
I think you're right.
to me, you can hang around old people, but if it's curious and asking them questions, and it's the same with young people.
Yeah.
You can learn a lot
You can learn a lot.
from wherever they are.
It's very true.
What else is inspiring
Work.
you, Jack?
My work and every single client that I coach or do a workshop with or facilitate or collaborate on inspires me, no doubt about it. But there are a couple of clients I'm coaching right now that really are inspiring me, Rahl. One is a creative industry leader. She's a mum to 2 very young children. She's looking to take equity in a business, and she's also keen to build her personal brand in a very authentic way. She initiated finding a good executive coach. It wasn't done for her, or it wasn't suggested she need one. She actually came out looking for one, and the person
Were they not available and she came to you?
Oh, she's rude.
That was a
She's
joke.
rude.
You know, you're a brilliant coach.
That's very kind of you to say. I'm probably brilliant for some. I might not be brilliant for others, and that's okay because we're not for everyone. But she did initiate coming to see me. And I said to her, so what is it about me? Why do you want to come to me? She said, I need two things. She said, I need to be held accountable and I want to stay true to my objectives and who I am. And I've heard you're able to support that. I said, I'll absolutely try.
Can I interrupt you there because we're just talking about some of the amazing speakers at the workshop I did, and the conference I had. One was Nireen Chowdhury, and he was the chair of Panama Brands. Anyway, it's like this massive Indian company. He lost two of his daughters. His daughter was really famous. She had this rare disease. She started to do TED Talks right at the end, and he gets inspired by her. Like, she's written books, and we'll put the links of that.
Would be great.
In. And he spoke about you should be really clear of what your values are. Like he talked about a tree.
Very important.
He talked about the tree, like trunk and the branches are your behaviours, but the roots are your values. And he said you not only should know the values, but you should tell people what they are so they hold you accountable. And that's exactly what he said about you. Like, it helps you hold yourself accountable, but it others can keep you accountable to your values if you speak about them.
I love that. I coach a number of people who will often start with, I'm so miserable where I'm working, I really don't like it. I say, talk to me about that. I then say, let's talk about you and your values. And sometimes they say, I don't know what my values are. And I say, that's very easy. We can identify those. There's a little assessment you can take online and then it all comes true. And I say, what your issue is with your workplace or the leader that you're reporting to is a misalignment in values. So your person you're just referring to is spot on.
Yep.
If you don't know your values, or if you do know your values and you're not actually in an environment that supports them, then there's a good chance you're going to struggle.
How many people do you coach that would say, I don't know my values? Is it just that they don't know how to articulate
I think they think it's a technical thing and that they've perhaps not done any work to really think them through. Yep. There's a lot of people that don't know what their values are. I mean, if I probe and say, well, okay, what is it that makes you feel good? What is it that you need in your life? Then we get there. But I say go and do this values assessment online. It's free. It's a really good one. And it'll spit out your 20 top values in your 20 values in your top 5. And then they always go, yeah, that's right. And there's other assessments and blind spots tests and things you can take that also highlight those. But this particular client that we've gone off track with, so wants to be held accountable, wants to absolutely be her authentic self. And she already displays quite good self-awareness, but she recognises she needs to move out of her comfort zone to be successful in achieving a more amplified brand. But most of all, she recognises she needs to get out of her own way. And I think those are great words, right? I need to I'm stopping myself.
Yep.
I'm limiting myself, and I know I am, and I can't do this alone. I need someone to help me. And I don't need somebody who's a family member or somebody I work with or my leader. I actually need somebody who's, I was going to say unemotional, who's objective and I guess less emotional or less emotionally related to. So I'm really impressed with her. Another client
also to get out of your own way.
Get out of your own way.
You know, when people go, I want to do this, and it's to me, when I said get out of your own way, it's all the self-doubt you bring in. It's like you've done it.
The stories you tell yourself.
Now get out of your own way because you are stopping you are stopping yourself from doing this.
Yeah, totally right. The second client got sacked, totally out of the blue, was not expecting it, was not prepared for it. I've been coaching this CEO for some time, got sacked. And how she has handled herself throughout that has been so impressive. Now, I don't know about you, but we've all been sacked.
Was it sacked as in she did something wrong, sacked, or retrenched, restructure?
No, they felt she had done something wrong, so they sacked her, and she had full evidence to counter that. But it was clear.
I don't think I've ever been sacked.
They didn't
in that
want
term.
That. No.
Like restructures,
yeah,
whatever.
Sure. A lot of people get sacked. They'll make it out to be something else, or the people sacking them might not tell them the truth. They didn't like them. They didn't think they were a right personality fit, or they will feel that something was done wrong. But how this person has navigated her way through this. First thing she did was realise she didn't want to go through this alone, and called me, and I coached her anyway. And so then what we did was we got off the dance floor, up on the balcony, and we said, okay, what's our plan?
Yeah.
First thing, we need a good lawyer. An employment lawyer.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
someone who
okay.
knows employment law. If
So
you feel
sort
you're
of
being
bit
sacked
nasty.
unfairly,
Yeah.
well, it wasn't nasty.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be nasty.
Yeah.
She just felt the allegations weren't accurate. So fair call. The other thing is if you get a good employment lawyer, you can benefit from, again, another objective, unemotional, expert piece of advice to help you maintain composure, be informed. And so she's, through this process of working with me and this lawyer, has been able to be objective, optimistic, and have perspective, yeah? And has come away with better conditions and benefits than she would have if she hadn't have gone through the process, and is really excited about what's next.
Yeah.
So again, that's really inspiring. And people get sacked or people get made redundant. It is a
happens
way
all
of
the time.
life.
In
We're going to
fact-
do a podcast episode on that.
Absolutely.
Let's do it soon.
I caught up coffee with a woman who, who made redundant
Yeah.
and had given herself, could see the writing on the wall, wasn't anything, had given herself quite a few months, just she wanted to take a bit of a break. But then I caught up with her and she wanted to pick my brains, and then she was telling me what she was doing to sort of get back in, and it was like, wow, I think you're doing everything right. So there's I think we'll do a podcast on that. It was
I think we should.
Transitioning to new jobs and whether that's
Or also-
if you've been retrenched or sacked.
Or sacked, because there's an immediate emotion that comes with that. I'm not good enough, or I've done something wrong in somebody else's
or
eyes.
just even what the bloody hell am I going to do now?
What am I going to do next, and how am I going to cope, and how am I going to support family, mortgage repayments, all those things. It all comes back to what we can control and what we can't. And you actually have no control over what your employer does, right? You have control over what you do, and I have control over what I do because we are our own employers. But we don't have any control over what someone else does who hires us.
Absolutely.
And
we don't
anyone-
even control, right at the moment, there's cost of living,
Interest rates.
Companies are sort of, letting contractors go. So the fact that, your business is probably booming because you're coaching, my business running training workshops and doing leadership conferences, they're not as happening. So, you go, okay, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
So even though I don't.
You're flat out. You don't stop.
But it has been quiet.
Yeah, sure. You've noticed it.
Yeah.
You've noticed it. So all you can control is how you respond to these situations.
Yes.
But how you respond and what you do next doesn't have to be your burden, is my point.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is where great coaches, great support, people that can be objective.
Well, you had a great quote a couple of episodes ago.
What was that quote, Ral?
I think it was in the Choose Your Attitude is life is 10% what happens to you
And 90% of how you respond.
Yeah,
You're exactly right.
absolutely.
And you can choose how the story ends. Yeah.
Yes.
So every day
Yeah,
we have two or three
exactly.
stories, and story being, a situation. And you can absolutely choose how it ends.
But there are some practical things you can absolutely do.
Absolutely.
When this happens. It's a highly stressful time.
It is.
And so, yes, let's do a podcast.
So
on
what
that.
I'm
That's
also
my point.
inspired by is adaptability. And this particular CEO has now, through this experience, been able to be adaptable because she's got new information, new insights. She knows exactly how to handle this if it happens again. Yeah. It's the first time it had happened to her. And maybe it's the last time, but she is so much more confident because of it.
Yep.
So that's really inspiring.
Yeah.
One
I was gonna
very
say, is
last
that it?
thing. No, there's one last thing. We got time, Keehlan, for me just to talk about this. I'm doing a little new collaboration, but don't worry, I'm not selling out on you. And it's not a podcast.
Right, okay.
I've
Carry
teamed
on.
up with an expert, a talent expert. You're talented and you're an expert, but it's not you. And we're creating a new program for ambitious female executives. And have a guess what it's focused on.
Ambitious female executives.
That's the target audience, right? But what the actual content of this new collaboration
I don't know.
for ambitious female executives is power skills. Do you know what a power skill is, right?
Power skill.
Can you guess?
Skills that are going to help you be powerful.
Oh, see, this is why you're brilliant and why I collaborate with you. Do you know, you've heard of soft skills?
Oh, you got to
That
hate that
shits
term.
me.
Got to hate, yeah.
Nothing soft about
Yeah.
emotional intelligence,
freaking hard
communication,
skills.
adaptability,
Yeah.
negotiation, not soft skills. So what we are doing, this awesome person who I'm collaborating with, and I'm going to reveal more as this program comes closer to life because we're just writing up the content now. But this program will be called Elevate and Influence. It's a series, Mastering Power Skills for Executive Excellence. And it's about how female executives can break through barriers and ascend to boardroom prominence. How does that sound?
That's a beautiful tagline.
You like it? So we'll be running the program across 3 different modules. It'll all be done online and people can register their interest.
Nice. And I'm sure if it's out by the time this podcast goes out,
it'll take us about another 3 or 4 weeks just to finalise, and then we're going to market it. But we've already got people saying sign us up.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's what's inspiring me.
Okay. Well, that was good. I'm glad we split this into 2 parts because it would have been a very cramped one session. Hey, I know in these ones we don't give tips and techniques like we normally do, but I'm going to say for a tip, if you're a keeper, I'd actually go through this process yourself. Spend some time thinking about what inspires you.
Love that,
Who are the people that inspire you? And maybe let them know if they're
even better.
If they're, you know them.
Even
what's
better.
inspiring you around health and well-being. And I think that just sometimes is a reminder to keep doing it. What's inspiring you in pop culture, and maybe get curious and
share what you're watching and reading and listening to. We'd love to hear
stuff and what's inspiring you at work at the moment.
Very cool.
I reckon it could be a good thing to do on a regular basis.
Agree. Totally agree. All right, let's wrap it up, baby.
Wrap it up. This has been another episode of Keeping It Real with Jack and Rel. Remember, we would love a rating and we would love you to share. 5-star rating, and love you to share. And we will speak to you next time.
Bye.
You've been listening to another episode of Keeping It Real with Jack and Rel. If you like what you've heard, don't forget to tell others about it and give a 5-star review. They may seem confident, but they really are sensitive 5-star needy souls. Yeah, right. Keeping It Real, created by Jack Phillips and Gabriel Dolan. Produced by Keehlan Ferrari-Brown. And this really real voiceover, spoken by Richard Phillips.